Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks to all who are joining us today. My name is Maria Visaki. I'm the Director of Community Engagement, Communications, and Customer Service for the City of Brantford. I'm happy to be here with my colleagues tonight to help facilitate the Ward 1 Shellard Neighbourhood meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Councillors Rosa Coley and Jan Vanderstel to open up the meeting.
Hi everyone, Councillor Rose Sicoli here, and my, what would you be, ward mate?
Ward mate, that's right.
Councillor Jan Vanderstel. So I just want to thank you for coming out tonight and joining us for this very important ward meeting of the Shellard Neighbourhood Association. We have some awesome City of Brantford staff here. Do you want to take over with the introductions on that, or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's all you. It's all you.
I'm trying to share. So we do have Maria Visaki here, who is manager of communications. We do have David Ferguson, who's manager of traffic services, who'll be giving a great presentation. We have from the Brantford Police Station, we have Hillary Miles. And I believe we have someone else.
Yeah, that guy right there.
That guy, Jason Sanders, is here as well. He's the deputy police chief. So I am going to pass it off to staff now because we do have some awesome presentations to go through from the police department, and then we'll cycle back and take some questions.
And if I can interject, sorry, I would normally have my own screen. I was not allowed to get into the server, so it's Vanderscoli. And if you can't really see us, it's my fault. I failed. Oh, and Rob is here too. Okay. Hello, Rob. Thank you for coming tonight.
It's okay. Sharing is caring. So we're sharing a screen.
That's right. Thank you.
Off we go. I believe I'm passing it to Jason at this point. Yes. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. There's actually a few staff with us here tonight. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Chief Rob Davis was planning on attending. However, he is tied up on another matter and asked that I stand in for him. So tonight we have Hillary Miles, who's our crime analyst, who's going to provide a presentation that's specific to your area of the city. We also have Dave Bauer, who's the sergeant in charge of our traffic section, and Amber Jackson, who's in charge of our community services section. So I'll turn it over to Hillary Miles.
Okay, thank you. I think Maria is just going to share my screen and then I'll share my presentation.
Yeah, so you can hit the share screen icon, Hillary. I made you co-host, so you should, it's at the bottom, the green one.
Oh, green, okay.
Yep.
All right, bear with me. I've never done this before. Share. Can you,
there you go.
Okay, do you just see one? I have two monitors, so can you see the blue one?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I've done a few of these presentations for other areas of the city and neighborhood associations, and I was asked to do a similar one for tonight for the Shellard Lane area, which is near and dear to my heart because that's my home area as well. So what I've done is I've looked for calls for service in and around the Shellard Lane area for the years 2020 and 2021. In brackets, you'll see I have Adam 10032. All that means is Brantford's broken down into 5 policing zones within the city, and within those zones are smaller pockets called Adams. So for the purpose of this presentation, our area is 10032. It really doesn't mean anything. So the call types I looked at were break and enters, motor vehicle thefts, thefts from motor vehicles, suspicious persons, motor vehicle collisions, and I will just refer to them as the focused calls for service. Slide. So again, this is the study area. It does expand a little outside of the Shellard Lane area, but unfortunately that's just the way that our mapping system works, and I can't make it any smaller. So the statistics will include all of the streets within that blue area there. Oh, and I should say too, you'll notice that there are a few streets missing. It's just because my mapping program needs to be updated. So it will still show statistics even down in this little area here where where the streets are missing. Okay, so 2020 calls for service. So in 2020, Brantford Police responded to 313 focused calls for service in the area. A breakdown of that, we had 9 break and enters, 14 motor vehicle thefts, 65 thefts from motor vehicles, 78 motor vehicle collisions, and 147 suspicious persons. If you've seen my other presentations, I've said it in them, and I'll say it again, that number seems very, very high for suspicious persons. That is our highest call type that we receive here at the service. There is not always a negative connotation to that, even though it's perceived to be that way. It could be something as simple as an individual walking down the street that the complainant doesn't recognize. So they just call it in as a suspicious person. Of course, there are criminal aspects from time to time, but definitely not always the case. Okay, so I've done a hotspot map here to show all of the focus calls for service. So where the red areas are, that means we have a higher concentration of calls for service. And then the yellows and blues, that means we have fewer calls to those areas. And this is all of the 5 focus calls for service that I looked at. Okay, so now I've done a breakdown of all of them. So this is our 9 break and enters. So you can see here, those dots represent the areas where they occurred. I can't give out specific address locations, so you will just see on here general location areas. For days of the week, Wednesdays, we had the most reported with 4, followed by Saturdays with 3, and Tuesdays had 2. You can see down here the times of the days reported. So 11 o'clock at night, or sorry, 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, geez, I'm looking at it sideways. 9 o'clock at night saw the most with 2 reported, and then the other hours there, you can see they had 1 each. January, we saw the highest number of reported entries with 3, followed by August with 2, and then February, March, July, and December had 1 each. Okay, and 2020 thefts of motor vehicles, we had 14. Again, you can see the locations there that they occurred at. Pretty even throughout the week, aside from Wednesdays and Thursdays, Sundays and Mondays saw the most. You can see down here the times of days. It's not uncommon to have early morning reports of vehicles stolen. You wake up and you notice that your vehicle's gone. You wake up for work and it's gone, so you call it in. And then 11 o'clock at night, we also saw some. February, March, April, July, and September were our busiest months with 2 reported in each, followed by May, June, August, and November with 1. Okay, thefts from motor vehicles. We had 65 reported in 2020 in the area. You can see there are the locations. Sundays were the busiest with 21, followed by Tuesdays. And then you can see the remaining breakdown of the days of the week. With these, you'll notice that a lot of them were reported like late morning to mid-afternoon. The reason being, so this is the time of day that they were reported. Most often when we have an entry to a motor vehicle, we have the complainant file an online report. So because there's such a high concentration there in the afternoon, that just means that that's when our resource officers entered the call into our system. So just during their business hours. So that's not when they occurred. Typically they occur during the overnight hours. So April and June were the highest months reported, followed by December and September and March. Okay, and then motor vehicle collisions. You can see there we had 78 reported in 2020 in the area. Tuesdays were the highest, followed by Wednesdays and Thursdays. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, no surprise there. School's getting out. It's very busy down in the area. So yeah, it's not surprising at all. Again, at 5 o'clock p.m. rush hour, everybody's returning from work. January and November, we saw the highest. Again, not uncommon to see winter months having a higher number of motor vehicle collisions, just given that, you know, the weather and snow and ice on the roads. Okay, and our suspicious persons, again, it's alarmingly high, but I assure you it's not uncommon at all. And it does not mean that a criminal incident took place in any of these. So Mondays, we had the most reported, followed by Thursdays and Fridays, and then Sundays. You can see the time of day that they're reported. Also very common to have some reported every hour of the day. August, we had the highest number. Again, not uncommon to see higher numbers for these types of calls in the summer months, just when more people are out, they're out later, it's lighter out, so you can see people more. Yeah. Okay, so that was 2020 and now 2021. So we responded to 259 focus calls for service in the area. So it did drop quite significantly from the year prior. You'll notice the breakdown though, the numbers have shifted quite a bit. So 28 break and enters, substantially higher than last year, and I'll explain why in a minute. Motor vehicle thefts, pretty similar. Thefts from motor vehicles also dropped drastically. Motor vehicle collisions, pretty similar, and suspicious persons dropped by about 45 or so. Okay, so here is the hotspot map again for the 21 focus calls for service. And then the 2021 break and enter. So like I mentioned, substantially higher than the previous year. And you'll notice that there's a cluster down kind of in the left-hand corner of the map portion of this screen. So that combined with the Wednesdays and the 11 o'clock a.m. and the month of July. So what that tells us is that a cluster of break and enters were reported on the same day at the same time. So what had happened in that situation, new build area, we received a call from the builders that a number of the new build houses had been broken into for wood and copper. So that is why those numbers are so much higher. I think there was about 14 or 15 houses all reported on the same day. They were vacant, under construction, so nobody was residing in them at the time. Okay, and then 2021 theft of motor vehicles, we had 16 reported. You can see the locations there. Saturday was the highest, followed by Mondays and Tuesdays. Again, 7 a.m., not uncommon. People are getting up for work, noticing their vehicles gone. And then August saw the highest, followed by January, April, May, September, and October with 2 each. And thefts from motor vehicles dropped drastically. Can't tell you why that happened. Sometimes it's just cyclical, depending on, whether or not known individuals who break into cars are in custody or not. A lot of crimes are very cyclical. This is one of them. So you can see the breakdown of the locations. Fridays were the highest report days for these occurrences. Again, same as previously, you can see the times of day that it's reported. It's just during our resource officers' day shift hours. October saw the highest number of reports with 9, and then the remaining months saw pretty consistent numbers reported there. And then motor vehicle collisions, 85. See a breakdown of the locations, days of the week, Mondays and Fridays, people are going to work and people are coming home for the week. So not uncommon. Again, same with the high number of 9 at 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Quite high as well, given the rush hour traffic. Again, same with last year, the winter months saw a higher number, likely just due to weather conditions on the roads. And then suspicious persons did drop by about 45. Here you can see a breakdown of the locations. Days of the week reported, Saturdays followed by Tuesdays and Fridays were the highest. Again, the hours, like I said before, not uncommon to see individuals or suspicious individuals being reported at every hour of the day. And then you can see the breakdown of the months. So pretty consistent through the, the late winter, early spring months, and then it drops down during the winter months. And that is it. I don't know how to unshare my screen.
Just the same way, Hillary?
It's showing me new share. Click that.
I can stop it for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now we'll take some questions following Hillary's presentation. I see Councillor Sokoli, you have your hand raised. Did you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, thank you.
Counselor
Yeah,
Spoli.
thank you. Hillary, I don't know if it's a fair question or not, and I know you've been compiling a lot of data from other wards and other areas as well, but can you give us a bit of an indication about whether or not the last or the 2 years that you've reported on is on par with what we're seeing in other areas of the city as well?
No, we're pretty consistently lower in all of the focused areas that I've studied for these projects. So yeah, and overall, I think we're about right in the middle for overall calls for service. So yeah, no, we're pretty good down in West Brant.
Okay, and then one other sort of related question, time reported. Have we ever ventured into the actual time of incident?
Absolutely, it's just much more difficult because like a lot of times for break and enters, they occur when people are on vacation or something. So the time that it occurred could be in a span of a week. So it's very, very difficult to narrow it down to give decent statistics on that type of stuff. Unless they can pinpoint, like, you know, I went to the grocery store for an hour and that's when it happened. That's very, like, it doesn't happen often that that's the case. So, so we just go by time reported because we know exactly what time those occurrences were called in at. So.
That's right. And one more follow-up. The collision statistics, do we break those down at all in terms of only like vehicular damage or perhaps injury? Do we ever break that?
We have a breakdown. What I did for these statistics, I looked at motor vehicle collisions with injuries, and then fatalities, because I know we did have a double fatality down actually on my corner of Conklin and Shellard there in 2020. So that one is included in the 2020 stats that I gave you. Okay. So yes, we do have a breakdown of.
Okay, thank you so much, Hillary. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Hillary. I do see that there is an attendee that does have a question. So Mark, go ahead with your question.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Mark. Go ahead.
Good evening, city staff, council members, and members of our city police force. A couple questions I have relative to the presentation made by Hillary. So a lot of the data would be referenced in today's policing world as soft crime data. And in this area, I live in West Brant area. I'm down by Brant Park and just off Oak Hill Drive in the Kennard survey.
Oh, that's where I grew up on Kennard. It's a great area.
Yes, sure was. I, spent a lot of time down here as a young guy too with all my buddies. So we'll have to talk one day. But, one thing we hear more and more about is, when you look at drugs are a major problem in every city center, and as Brantford growing, we all know that's a significant issue in the city now. You look at recently the issues with gun crime on Diana and the shootings. What do the stats look like for the hard crimes in town here? Because that's really what people are most concerned about. I've got a niece who has a baby who is months old who lives in that apartment complex. She is terrified as a single mother. We're concerned as being around the corner, and as a born and bred Brantford native, Maria and I know each other from the old high school days and working as kids in the grocery store. We didn't have this kind of stuff in Brantford, and if we did when we were younger, it was probably either from out of town or conflict, where very rare. Very rare did you truly hear of anybody firing a weapon or killing somebody in cold blood. They're not going to pick on the motels up on Colburn Street, but it's here. We all know it's here. What about that data? Because the data concerns me a hell of a lot more than somebody banging on my car or not seeing if my car's unlocked, which I'll talk about in a minute, and taking my change out of my vehicle. Those are the crimes that really hit home, because that's really not traditional to Brantford, but it's here, and it appears to be more active.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is too, especially down in our area, is all of the new residences that are being built brings in an influx of, people from larger cities. And with that comes big city problems. So yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of that. I actually did do a study on violent crimes. So I can tell you, I've pulled it up right here. So Ward 1 is about literally right in the middle of it. Well, I guess no, we're second. So Ward 5 has the highest number of violent crimes, followed by Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 1 and then Ward 2.
But am I correct, Hillary? It's basically growing. It doesn't matter the ward, it's growing in the city. And I guess my concern is, what are we doing to put attention to it? And it should really start with reporting within these types of meetings to the Ward 1 community and other city communities, because every time you go somewhere in the neighborhood, people are talking about it. So
Yep.
we should report it.
I'm going to let Deputy Chief Saunders touch on that one.
Okay, I understand. I can't hear you.
You're muted, Deputy.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, Mark, you touched on one thing at the very beginning there, is that, with the 403 running right through the middle of our city, we are an easy transit for crime that comes from larger communities. So we are well aware of that. And there was an announcement recently in regards to funding from the ministry to combat those types of crimes that you just spoke of. Earlier this year, there was the creation of a new unit within our service called the Tiger Unit, whose specific goal is to target those types of crimes that you specifically mentioned. So there's two things that we do. One, Hillary does a fantastic job for us. She's just given you, again, a small snapshot of certain types of crime, but she provides us with a large scale breakdown of all the different crimes that are occurring, where they're occurring within the community, and things that we can link together. So you saw, for example, if we knew cars were being broken into at 8 a.m. on a Monday, then obviously it makes sense. We're going to tailor our enforcement to that type of information. And the second thing, and I think you touched on it as well, is information coming to us. There's often members in the community assume that we're aware of something, when a lot of the time we may not be. And so I would encourage anybody that if you do have a concern, or you do have something you wish to report, never hesitate to call us. We have wonderful staff in our comm center that process these types of calls, and they'll send them off to where they need to go. So I hope that was answering your question, Mark.
Yes, it was. And if I could ask, I'd like to see some of that data provided as the standard in future reports where we would do these ward meetings. If we're going to continue to see updates like this, I'd like to see some of the data for some of the real crimes.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And one of the other areas that we do report this type of crime is at our police service board meetings. And they're the second Thursday of every month, and they're open to the public. And at least once a year, we provide a 5-year statistical analysis where we look at all of the crime that's occurring within the community, and we compare it over the previous 5 years. And we always try to make that report public as well.
And we also have, if you go onto the Brantford Police website, we do have mapping on there where you can select, certain call types and areas of town and see the occurrences that are happening in that area as well. That's on the Brantford Police website.
Okay, thank you. The second part of my question goes back to your presentation directly, Hillary. So in this area for the thefts of vehicle and from vehicle, that category. So I joined within our community team here in Ward 1 over the last calendar year. I haven't been out much in the last several months, but we basically did a nighttime patrol unofficially amongst concerned citizens whose vehicles were entered or stolen. And what we found is traditionally between 2 and 4 a.m. and it's a tandem of two guys on bicycles, and they're typically between 18 and 25. Just about caught them one night, but we missed. But people have this on video from the various surveys, Kershaver, Oak Hill, within the Kennard survey. And what's happening, they understand the access into this part of West Brant is perfect for bicycles. They're coming through from the Daubeny soccer fields, or they come across from the McDonald's and Tim's at night. They pretty much know the pattern of the neighborhood. And in talking to other neighborhoods, I used to live in McBride Court. It seems it is the same group because nobody's ever been able to truly catch them. They're hoodie guys, and I know that's impossible for police. You see the bank machine video and everybody's got the hoodie drawn in. You really can't get any information other than, he's 5'9" and 170 pounds, right? But at the end of the day, we found within the community that's been a huge part. And I guess what I'm looking at is knowing that that's a sweet spot for time. Can police services, or has it been part of the focus to, whether it be patrol cars or possibly even late at night? I don't know if you have summer constables on bicycle, but it seems that they've got a pretty good strategy here that they can get in and out of the neighborhood very quickly by bicycle. And it has been documented 4, 5, 6 times. I could send you some videos where people are saying, hey, 212, they try to get into my truck on Kershaver. 15 minutes later or less, they're over here. And some they get into, some they don't. But there's still a fair bit of activity. Is it violent crime? No. But it's annoying knowing, number one, people are on your property. And then secondarily, whether it be your change or other things from your vehicle, my daughter lost over $500 worth of stuff 2 summers ago, just simply didn't lock the car. So, you know, that happens quite a bit, but my neighbor around the corner here on one of the cul-de-sacs, a truck hooked up at 2:30 in the morning and pulled his trailer with all of his tools away. And people are saying, how does this happen? You know, there's video cameras out and it almost seems they're invisible. Now that's obviously somebody that drove into the neighborhood. And I know it's not just in this part of Brantford, but we do know that 90% of the time when there's data, it's between 2 and 4:30 in the morning, and it's two guys on bikes.
Yeah, I can answer that question as well, Mark. So first I'll talk to the video aspect of things. You know, technology is increasing every day, it seems. And one of the areas that we're looking at right now is our digital evidence management and what that system is going to look like in the future. Because yes, a lot of people have cameras now, but it's really not easy for them to get us that type of video. And we are in the process of researching the ability that we can send people links or put links out in the public. And if you have this type of video, you simply upload it to our data bank without actually having to have an officer come to your house. So that technology is available, and I would like to see it implemented fairly soon, because it would be easy for people that do have this video to get it to us. As far as things that occur early in the morning, I can tell you that you know, our officers currently work a 12-hour shift rotation. And at the beginning of that shift, their supervisor provides them the data that Hillary just spoke of today, as well as they go through the log. And when I say the log, it's basically the call log for the last 24 hours. And they review what has occurred in their patrol zone in the last 24 hours. And then they're given the opportunity, calls permitting, unfortunately, to provide proactive enforcement. Obviously, we're call driven. We have to respond to emergency calls when they come in, but we do still have the opportunity to provide proactive enforcement. One of the statistics for 2022 that I've presented to the Police Services Board is that our proactive enforcement has jumped substantially compared to the previous year. So that means the officers are out there discovering more things or looking for more things, as opposed to reacting to more things. As far as officers on bicycles, yes, we do have that. And that would be an area that we would really like to expand in the future. And we'll see if that is an opportunity. Starting very soon, you're going to see our annual summer park patrol program that puts officers that do have the ability to issue tickets and summonses on dirt bikes that will be patrolling neighborhoods and parks starting in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your questions, Mark. I don't see any other raised hands, and I'll just remind the attendees that if you do want to ask a question after any of the presentations, or hopefully we'll have some time towards the end of the meeting as well, just use the raise hand icon beside your name, and I will get a notification that you want to ask a question. So I don't see any other raised hands right now, so I think we can go on to the next presentation.
Yes, and I do want to just alert Deputy Sanders that Councillor Vanderstelt and I have received quite a few calls with some loitering and gathering of vehicles who are playing music loud at St. Basil's, Walter Gretzky, and they're smashing beer bottles and things like that. So we thought we'd bring that up to you tonight, just so you can keep an eye on that neck of the woods down there.
Yeah, actually, while the two of you are here, at the end of this meeting, do the two of you have a couple moments? Maybe we can stay on the call and discuss.
Thank you.
We'd love to. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, we do have David Ferguson, who's the manager of traffic services. He's with the city of Brantford, and I believe he has a presentation for us on the traffic concerns in our area, as well as some possible solutions. So David, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, councillors. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here. Everybody see that all right? Good.
All good, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, so what's brought us here tonight in terms of traffic is the city has taken a sort of a new approach in terms of dealing with traffic requests and trying to look at traffic and roadway safety within neighborhoods through a different lens. And a lot of this comes through the Vision Zero action plan and Vision Zero program. So the traditional approach has always been, residents will call with a concern at an intersection or a roadway. Often we deal a lot with warrants and different types of standards. And when we look at these local roadways, unfortunately, when you deal with a warrant process that deals with numbers and requirements to meet certain levels, we often find that the warrants aren't met, and so they become unwarranted. And of course, we send these reports to committee and council, of course not recommending anything because they didn't meet the warrants. But with Vision Zero, it's changed things to a different approach. And what we find is when you look at things from a neighborhood approach rather than individual roadways, it gives us an opportunity to develop a better plan for the neighborhood. And of course, we're looking to encourage and engage the residents to get feedback. You folks are the people that live in those neighborhoods. You see what's going on a day-to-day basis. If you have young children, you know your walking routes to parks and schools, identifying areas of concern. So those are the things that we're looking for in terms of going forward. And of course, when you're doing this type of approach, it's also about developing these safe neighborhoods as well as promoting healthy living. The other approach is looking at local residential roadways and a focus on all types of road users. So it's not just about moving the vehicles, it's about pedestrians, it's about cyclists. And so these are the approaches that we're taking. Is my screen changing? No? Oh, hold on a second. Sorry. Let's try this again. Share. How about now? Working now? Thank you.
It did advance. Yep.
Perfect. So this is the slide I was referring to. Sorry about that. So in terms of how we implement, so step one, which is tonight, what we're looking for is feedback from the residents. We want to know the locations that you have concerns and provide suggestions on how we can address those issues. And then step two will be traffic services. We'll go back. We'll compile obviously all the comments, the locations, and then we'll review it and develop an overall traffic management plan based on industry principles. And then we'll come back and present that plan to the residents to get their support. And then after that, we will provide a report to the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee and of course, council for approval. And what this does is we'll take the information and we'll look at it in sort of two different phases. So phase one would be what I call quick wins, things that we can do fairly easily. Maybe it's some bylaw changes, some signage, pavement markings, some temporary products. And then phase two is things that we've been able to identify that are larger scale that may require capital funding, and we can build a plan around that. Obviously, working in a smaller, or being in a smaller municipality, funding is limited, so we do have to plan things out. So this is a good opportunity for us to do that. And then just some examples I've talked about here. I mean, the biggest thing, especially with Vision Zero, for anybody that's a bit of a traffic geek like myself, there's a big movement around the world, and especially in North America right now, to reduce speed limits. Council has recently approved us lowering our speed limits on local residential roadways to 40 kilometers an hour. And for designated school zones and parks, we can reduce the speed limit to 30 kilometers an hour. And then there's other forms of traffic calming out there. There's, of course, the most popular one is speed humps or speed cushions. And they probably are the most effective. Obviously, you have to come and slow down as you're driving over them. So, but there are advantages and disadvantages that we see. So it's really about developing a plan, like I said, for the whole neighborhood and entire roadway. It's not just one item you want to install. You want to install a collective number. PXOs are another big thing that we're installing around the city. Of course, PXOs are fairly new to the city. And what they are is it essentially provides a new form of traffic control for pedestrians. It gives the pedestrian the right of way to cross the roadway at designated locations. As identified in the Highway Traffic Act, the vehicle must come to a stop for a pedestrian waiting to cross. There are also requirements for the pedestrian. The pedestrian does have to make sure that the vehicles are slowing down and stopping and have enough time to stop before they begin their crossing. But they are a good tool in our toolbox. A big part, active transportation, developing our cycling network across the city. We also sit on a Brant County active transportation group with public health, and that's something that they're also supporting. And of course, that also supports the whole part around healthy living and lifestyle, supporting kids being active. So those are big components. And then it's also about developing the network itself, identifying crossing locations where people may walk on a daily basis, whether it's going to parks or trails, being able to highlight those locations. Maybe it's a raised crosswalk, which acts like a speed hump that can slow people down. We have some center median signs that are becoming very popular nowadays throughout Ontario, directional closures, center islands. So there's a lot of tools available to us in being able to try and address the issues that residents bring up. Let me just have a drink of water. So one of the things that is very common that we hear a lot in the transportation industry is people will request always stops because they're concerned about speeding. And one of the things I always say is you really want to identify what the real issue is and identify that real issue. So an always stop isn't really going to it's not really addressing what your concern is around speeding. Yes, it'll address the issue at that intersection. People will slow down, but we do find that with unwarranted always stops, we then get increased complaints with respect to non-stopping compliance. People will roll through the stop sign, and then people are calling us a month afterwards saying people aren't stopping at the stop sign. So we really want to focus on what the true issue is and implement the measures that really address those issues. So this is just an example of a neighborhood and how you implement various types of measures to address the various types of issues. So, it talks about reduced speed limits. It talks about parking, mid-block bump outs or curb extensions, speed bumps. You know, one complaint I hear a lot is there's too much parking on the street. But parking is a form of traffic control. So I know, you know, there's kids out and they're playing and they're behind cars, but it really does. If you have a roadway that's say 10 meters wide and you have parking on both sides, or 15 meters wide and there's parking on both sides, and you then take away parking on one side, well, now you've just increased the comfort level of that motorist, and chances are speeds are going to start to increase because they're more comfortable. Again, just some chicanes, talks about information signage, using paint. There's mini roundabouts or traffic buttons, we call them, reduced radiuses at intersections. So again, this is just an example of what we would kind of create based on the comments that we received tonight, and then be able to put together. So what we'll do now is sort of open the floor to the residents to provide their comments and feedback on problem locations or areas of concern that they may have.
Thanks, Dave. We do have some questions. We've got 3 questions, so I'm going to go to Robin first. Robin, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can, Robin. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, thank you. David, that was excellent information. I really appreciate it. We're new residents in this end of town, and we're finding that Blackburn Drive, particularly in between Flanders and Diana, is a speedway and a noise way. I understand that the area has it's a wide area due to the fact that there's parking on either side, you know, which is a luxury, I understand. But it does create that, you know, comfort zone for the driver, which creates a speed zone, and there's no slowdown there. If there was a way to bring down the speed for that area, it'd be really appreciated, maybe some signage. I don't believe that there is a city bus that comes through there, so possibly some, you know, speed bumper cushion would be appreciated there as well. Or even one of those hey, you're going too fast signs, something like that. I'd also like to, and I'm not sure if this is the time to do it, but if there's a way to maybe brighten the roadway. I see that the area is, the evening lighting is very dull. And I'm wondering if that would assist in any way to create some visual ability for people.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. The city, do you know if the city has changed out the street lighting along that road?
I don't believe they have. I know that there was only one light along Blackburn, particularly, that is LED, and I believe everything else is. Now, to be honest, I've only been here for about a year, so I haven't seen any changes in that time. So maybe an update would be good on those lights.
Yeah, we will definitely look at that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Did you have any other comments?
No, I think those were my main concerns. Just the speeding along Blackburn, maybe a slowdown if possible. I did realize, I noticed a post not too long ago, and it was from the Brantford Police Services regarding noise on vehicles that have been altered, and that contributes to some of it around here as well. But I think the speeding is the main concern, considering there's children in the neighborhood, and you know, balls tend to go on the road. So.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for your feedback.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go next to Jonathan Smith. Jonathan, you can go ahead.
Hi, it's actually, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, so it's actually not Jonathan. I'm his partner, Carrie.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So I don't really have any solution, but my area of concern, it's been that way for quite a long time, is the Shellards Lane between just going up Shellards between Conklin and McGuinness and past. It's become quite a speedway, especially for trucks. It's quite loud. I know I've made a couple of reports. I'm really concerned about, with all of the new developments, people walking. You know, I'm just concerned that somebody's going to get schmucked if something that doesn't happen. Also, between when you go up Shellers, there seems to be just a slight little hill before McGuinness. So when you're crossing over Shellers from McGuinness, I'm really worried that if somebody is flying up, it's just a teeny little hill that they might not see. It's quite small, but that's kind of my area of concern, is that road.
Yeah, and so one of the things through the counselor is that we will be reviewing community safety zones for this year. Hoping to have a report later in the year. Through the spring and the summer, we'll be doing various traffic studies throughout the city to collect some data so we can create a ranking program that we can present to council for these community safety zones, as well as we are investigating. There's no timeline for it as of yet, but we are also looking into automated speed enforcement for possibly in the future, which would be very beneficial, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I was going to call you Jonathan again, but it's Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for your participation. Next, we have Barb Walsworth. Go ahead with your question.
There we go.
Comment.
Hi, I'm Barb
Hi.
Walsworth. I'm concerned, I live on Donegal Drive, closer just behind Maple Leaf, but the cars go up and down Donegal at quite a speed. There is no stop between when they get on it till the very end where it hits Maish. And we go by the park and lots of little kids out there playing, and the noise of the cars drives us nuts too. But this has been an issue for many, many years. And when talking to some of the neighbors, they're very concerned about the speed of it and didn't know if there could be any like those speed bumps put in or something.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that and identify and come up with some suggestions or ideas to try and address those issues.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. And Mark, go ahead.
Hi again. Couple questions here. I think probably direct this to Jan and maybe David provide some support here, but couple questions here relative to traffic related. The new signage that we're seeing. You know, I drive down Oak Hill Drive, I come down North Park Road, and I see these green and blue signs at corners of residential streets. As a driver of a vehicle, you can't read them. When you do pull over and get enough time, the wording is so small. So I'm wondering, outside the fact that we have standard street signs, anybody who's looking to go anywhere in this town or any other city is going to jump on their phone and Google or use MapQuest, etc. So what's the purpose of the signs that have been popping up around the city, and what's it costing us, the taxpayer, to install those signs? Because hearing a lot of frustrating comments, and I agree with most people, unless you're riding a bike, and hopefully this is not designated for bike riders only, because I see a lot of phones hanging out of people's back pockets that are riding bikes. But I'd like to get a little insight as far as the purpose and the cost of the sign program and what scope this will follow through Brantford, because it frustrates me in my neighborhood.
Yeah, so those are more around active transportation signage and directional signage. That's the intent of those signs. So again, I talked earlier about us building our active transportation program around walking and cycling. So you'll see them in areas where there's sort of multi-use paths, and they're help to direct people to various areas who may be using those trail systems. That's the primary intent of those types of signs.
but you see them at Dundas and North Park Street, and there's 8 or 10 line items of information there. That's not a trail system. The cars are coming through there in a 3-way stop sign. So I just look at it, to me, I don't understand the purpose of the value of it. And I'm very interested in what is the city paying to incorporate those signs? What's it costing the taxpayer for that program?
Yeah, and the funding came through a grant program through the province. So there was no impact financially to the city or the taxpayers.
Well, we still pay the cost in the end, though. I mean, somebody pays for the signs, whether they tax it at the provincial level or municipal. But what is the city program relative to expenditure for those signs, and how far are you taking it?
I don't have the actual cost in front of me. I'd have to look that up as what the costs were.
So is this program going to continue to expand throughout the city, or is it complete now?
At this point, it's complete, but again, as we develop our active transportation program, so we are doing an active transportation master plan this year, looking at how we develop our network across the city. And one of the parts of that will be sort of that active transportation directional signage.
Okay. My second question is relative to the $1.8 million noise barrier wall that Jan, you were quoted in the Brantford Expositor in January of 2022 this year. Is that still a barrier? I understand 4.5 meters high. I would be horrified to have that installed in my neighborhood. Is that noise barrier still planned for completion during this year?
Yes, Mark. Thanks for your questions. I'm just going to, if I can, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to back up a little bit. The city has won numerous awards for its walkability and the attention that it pays to people who would prefer to move through the city on anything other than a vehicle. We've made sure that we paid attention to all populations. So it's not just everybody who has access to a cell phone in their back pocket. If you think about the young that do walk together and do benefit from some directionality in the signage, they can get some benefits there. The aged as well, if they are new to the city, not all of our aging populations carry with them a GPS. So the signage throughout the city is meant for that population. It isn't actually meant for the driving the population to slow down and have a look at those signs, because they're not geared for that purpose. So that's to answer, I think one of your first questions. Your second question.
Can I chime in
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that?
go
Sorry
ahead.
to
Yeah,
kill
yeah.
your flow.
Yeah, that's right.
But many years ago, I actually sat on the multi-use trails and bikeways advisory committee. And that was back in 2012 when we started the signage process. So Brantford's actually quite the hub of trail systems. And I can't even remember the number, but there's a dozen or so trails that all interconnect, and there's a web of them within Brantford. And we were finding people actually hike from Hamilton to Simcoe, and they were getting to Brantford and getting completely lost in this web of trails. So that's sort of where the signage project came from. And I don't know about you, but I like to, when I go for a ride or a run or a hike, I like to disconnect from my phone. And I think the signage sort of touches on that nicely, just for sake of background, Mark, because it's something we've been working on for a long time. And I'll let you take the noise wall.
Yeah. So the noise wall, it's if Mark, if you're not sleeping at night like the people in condo number 9 and all of the houses backing on to the entire hill there, that wall is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. So what's happened is when the fire hall came in, when McDonald's came in, when Tim Hortons came in, and when the other commercial developments came in across the street, there were no noise provisions for people whose open windows open right out onto the street there. Okay, we actually promised that when we realigned and brought the extension through the BSER and Veterans Memorial Parkway through, we had promised that to that population of people. So what ended up happening was, in often cases, late into the night, there's activities that were occurring at Tim Hortons, at McDonald's, at the previously vacant parking spot across the road. And unfortunately, people were just being indignant, unkind, and revving their engines and honking their horns, flashing their lights right into the bedroom windows of these people who were trying to sleep. So we tried to mitigate that with a number of different efforts to no avail. Police services certainly helped out as often as they possibly could. But the noise levels were indicated to be high enough to justify a noise attenuation wall or berm. That study was completed while Councillor Weaver was still on council. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time or the staffing resource to put together the plan. So that has come to fruition in the last little while. And I'm glad to report that everybody in that area not only lobbied heavily for us to make good on our word, make good on our promise to put that in, but we are going to see that put together. I think it is summer, fall of I think it's this year when that wall is going to be put up, Mark. I hope that answers some of your questions.
So Jan, you focus on the noise aspect from the McDonald's and Tim Hortons, of which, I'm frustrated with it as well. Was there any discussion in regards to limiting those two outlets hours? I believe Tim's is closed at 10 o'clock. McDonald's, I know, is typically open 24 hours, but as opposed to putting up a wall that's going to be almost 15 feet tall for, I guess, those that you're referencing at two retail establishments, was there any discussion from City Council with the ownership of those two franchises to see if we could limit hours so that the noise problem would go away? Because as a kid, we all hung out at McDonald's late at night, with your buddies, etc. If the stores aren't operational and the kids can't get something to eat, then probably your noise problem is going to be mitigated.
Right, Mark. I'm glad you asked for that clarification. Specifically, the noise study had nothing to do with the commercial establishments that I mentioned. It had to do with traffic. It had to do with traffic.
You mentioned that
it had to do with traffic noise and volume. So the traffic noise and volume was in excess of the levels that are acceptable to residential situations like this. And that's the difference. I think we've seen an increase in traffic and an increase in speed as well, like we've seen everywhere. So that was the criteria by which we judged the necessity of that wall.
Because, you look at it from a neighborhood standpoint, I wonder, green landscaping, planting dense trees, cedars, etc. Was that looked at? Because, last thing I want to see is a wall and have Will's name written all over it again. And then, you've got a graffiti wall in Brantford again. So, that would be my other concern. As soon as you put any structure like that up, it attracts that type of activity.
Oh, I appreciate the challenge, Mark. Thank you. So typically the foliage that you would—
a challenge, it was a question.
The challenge to answer the question is also a challenge, Mark. Thank you. So the foliage that you typically put up on a berm or in a berm-like situation doesn't really do the full job of noise attenuation. It's only a partial stopgap measure. One of the things that we've undertaken in the last 2 years as well with the City of Brantford, with the help of some of our departments, is to mitigate those. Will was actually arrested for his malfeasance. So thank you to the Brantford Police Services for doing that. And what we've done is we've undertaken a method by which we cover all of the graffiti almost immediately. And you may have noticed throughout town that there certainly isn't a resurgence as what we've seen in the past. So it seems as though we've gotten on top of that one as well.
Last quick point here relative to the residential 40-kilometer-hour speed limits. Any complaints, or are you hearing more and more? I'm noticing in our little neighborhood, the FedEx drivers, the CanPars, the daily deliveries now, and we all know why that is, but the trucks are roaring up and down the residential streets. The frequencies increased significantly. Yes, I have stuff coming to my door too. But is that something that the city is getting complaints on, that there seems to be a significant increase in courier type traffic, and a lot of it is really moving at a fast pace through residential neighborhoods?
Yeah, I haven't heard any of that, those complaints. I know there is an uptake, obviously, in delivery services. One thing we have done, and we're having discussions, we've created a Vision Zero working group, which consists of various departments, various stakeholders, internal and external. So we are looking to reach out to, sort of the industry partners that are out there, to raise issues around roadway safety and creating buy-in that, when they're in Brantford, they're going to obey by speed limits, etc. So that would be something we would share with them through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. We do have, oh, we had someone, but they must have lowered their hand. Okay. I think we can go on to the next item on the agenda, and I do think that we'll have some time later if anyone else wanted to ask questions about any of the subject matter from tonight's meeting. So I believe staff member Rick Cox, who's our Director of Park Services, is up next.
Good evening, everybody. Maria, thanks for bringing me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My objective tonight, and thanks for the opportunity, councillors, to bring this forward at the ward meeting, is to ask those who may be watching this to give some thought to the naming of a park. In Brantford, there's a policy on how parks get named, and one of the things that is required under that policy is that the ward gets consulted, and we will be working with the councillors over the next several weeks to prepare a report coming to council in June to declare the official name for the park that is in the Empire 6B phase subdivision. So I have it up on my screen. I can share my screen so folks can get a sense of where it is, if Maria will let me do that.
Yeah, you should be able to.
All right.
I made you a co-host. There you go.
I'm going to share the map screen that I have, and the park that I'm speaking of is right in between Vidavine Drive and Anderson Road. This aerial photograph is from last year before all of the construction was finished. It's obviously a lot more built out and complete now than it used to be, but that's the park. It has some signs up on it that say Anderson Road because that's where it is, but it doesn't have an official name yet. And we need input from the community to decide on what that name would be and bring the report back forward to council in June. I did have a chance to speak with the Shellard Neighbourhood Association several weeks ago, and I have received some suggestions from them that we will be working through. I'm not going to shape the suggestions at all tonight by providing those. There are a number of them, and there are any number of ideas that anyone could provide, whether it's related to the street names, related to individuals that should be recognized, perhaps something related to the history of the area, something related to natural features of the area. All of those are eligible under the naming policy, and then the councillors and staff will work together to come forward to council with a recommendation. So my simple ask is that if anyone has some suggestions for that park's name, that they would take the time to email me at rcox@brantford.ca over the next week or so. My timing to get the report ready is running out, so there isn't a lot of time left, but I would appreciate any suggestions that may be coming from the community, and especially if there are some young people in your home or in your circle who might have some great ideas that they would like to see a park named in their neighborhood. It would be great to hear from them as well. So once again, that email address is rcox@brantford.ca, and I'm looking forward to hearing any suggestions that might come forward. I'm also able to take any questions on this or anything else that might be appropriate under the circumstances. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, Rick. I don't see any raised hands. Maybe I'll go to the counselors if you wanted to add anything to what Rick has already said.
Hi, everyone. Rick, I was wondering if you could just very quickly highlight the parameters to which the city, like the parameters that we use when we're selecting a name. I think there's some rules around that, and not to put you on the spot, I hope you have them available somewhat, but that might help the participants today in guiding their suggestions.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so the under the policy, there are a number of things that would be appropriate. And so the principles, as I mentioned earlier, talk about geographical features, historical elements related to the area or the street in which the park is located, help people associate how to find it, perhaps. So, you know, Anderson Street, Anderson Park, there is some logic to that. That's a good example of how you might use a locational type of example for a park name. Hilltop Park, that tells you what kind of geographic feature it is. Councillor Sicoli, Public Park, that celebrates a significant individual in the community. Alexander Bell Park, a historical figure in the community. Walter Gretzky Park, celebrate a different sort of sport-based or community-based historical name. There are other options as well. So perhaps there is a family or a person that has made a significant contribution to the community that's not related to that part of town. I'm not, 100% example who maybe Cockshut might be an example of a family that's historically significant in the city. There's already parks names like that, and we don't want to duplicate. So you don't want to have multiple parks with very similar or similar names, the same names in the city. There also might be a group. So the Tiddlywink Club Park. Not to pick a particular social organization or anything like that. I don't want to advertise for any of the clubs that are out there in particular. So I'll use the Tiddlywink Club as an example. The other one could be an event. So there might have been an event of particular significance. An example would be Sesquicentennial Park, named after when the 150th anniversary of Canada. So there are different criteria and principles that are contained within the policy about a person, about a place, about a location, or about an event. Would be reasons that you could consider to come up with a name. Of course, if there is there will have to do some investigation or some research on the name to make sure that it's not inappropriate to use it. Get permission from families if that's appropriate as well. So it's not just a slam dunk that any name put forward would be taken. There is some homework that the staff will have to do around any of the suggestions that come forward. Does that help? Councillor Sicoli, is that what you're looking for? Yeah.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. And if you can't think on the spot, just make sure that we're reaching out to Rick or myself or Jan, and we'll make sure that the right people get those name suggestions for the park.
Okay, I think at this point we'll open it up to any questions of any members of the panel that haven't already been asked this evening. Okay, Marwan, I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, correctly. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So Councilman, Chief, thank you very much for your time. So we moved here into the city like a few years ago, and we are a family. Both me and my wife work, but we only have a single car, and my wife works over at Toronto. And in the recent years, lots of people are moving into Brantford from different cities, and there's an expectation that they're going to be commuting longer distances for work. And one of the modes they will be using is the train, the VIA Rail. There's a considerable number of people that use that. But we're facing the issue where there isn't reliable public transportation that reaches the train station. It's sort of either the person has to be dropped off by a car, even because there's no bus that goes to the train station. And at the same time, like there was an option to use the bike, but then we were told that it was unsafe to leave the bike there. So I was wondering if there's any plans in the future to improve or make some changes to the public transport in the city so that these areas are more accessible.
I absolutely love that suggestion. And we've been writing the whole time, Marwan. And I'm going to look into getting an answer to that because I think it's a very valid suggestion. And we'll see what we can do. You have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Marwan, thank you for bringing it up. It's always a challenge with a historical city. It's not a simple gridlock, straight line city. We have a lot of historical monuments that we move around, the river that we have to contend with, bridges just about everywhere. The bottom line is it's very difficult, even though our transit system is heavily subsidized by gas tax. It's extremely difficult to shorten the timelines between your location in New West Brant, this area, and provide a direct route to the train station. It's fraught with a number of different difficulties in terms of logistics and route times. We have toyed with the opportunity and the idea of leaving a single bus or two bus or part of a taxi service that is dedicated for specific routes that you're referring to and specific needs. That has gotten some support on council and has some merit, but we haven't seen it come to fruition yet. But it's something that we come across from time to time in terms of that equation that is changing over time. We're seeing that more and more people are having the opportunity either from working from home or don't really want to use a second vehicle, and they're looking for the alternative services. I agree with you. I think we will look into that and see whether or not there is anything that we can add to the services that Brantford Transit currently provides. Thanks, Marwan. Good idea.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Marwan. Okay. Councillors, I see you've got your raised hand icon. Was there something that you wanted to raise?
Yes. I just wanted to note for Dave that there were a large number of families on McGuinness who had reached out to me and they let me know they were unable to attend this evening, but I really wanted to just have it on the record that we are looking at some traffic calming solutions for McGuinness area, and we're looking around the Dowden area, but we are open to suggestions. If there is anybody participating in this meeting who has any feedback or any comments towards that area, I would love to hear it this evening. And the next question I have was Councillor Vanderstelt and I get inundated with calls for some of the brand new areas of Winfield. So we're talking out down Blackburn in the new area, Monroe Circle. We have Cheevers and Gillespie and all of those areas. Those areas are not, they're still in the possession and the ownership of Empire, I believe. So they haven't actually transferred over to the city. And I was hoping perhaps not to put you on the spot too much, Dave, but if you could just take 2 seconds and explain to everybody here tonight sort of what that means and why we're having some issues with traffic calming solutions and parking and things like that out in the brand new area. If you could just explain it in your words, that would be very helpful, I think, for some of the people here.
Yeah, so one of the problems you run into with obviously new developments, and people move into those new developments as they're progressing along with the buildings. The municipality doesn't actually take over control of those lands. They're still under the ownership of the developer. And so we don't really have a lot of jurisdiction to go in and force them to do anything, because they own the land. They've gone through a process with the city, submitted site plans and development plans that get approved. And so then it's until the city assumes responsibility of roadways, then we go in and try to address issues after the fact. We are working with the planning development department to get more involved in these new developments, to identify areas for improvements and implementing traffic calming as part of the development process. So when the roadway gets built, the traffic calming, the curb bump outs, the reduced crossings are all in place right from the get-go, rather than us having to come in at after the fact.
Thank you so much. That was well said.
Okay. I think we have another question from an attendee. Barb?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now, Barb. Go ahead.
Okay, then. Can we chat a little bit about the Southwest Community Center and the park and where things are situated right now and what is going on with the city and the school board and so forth? It's been a long time coming.
I'm not sure if I can speak to some of those questions, and some I cannot. I can tell you that the school development is actively moving forward in collaboration with the city and the library board. There are agreements and plans and designs and contracts being worked on, and there's a number of planning and site control aspects that need to be taken care of before any construction can take place. But the anticipation of moving forward with that is 100%, and you will probably see some activity related to that school, if not before the end of the year, then certainly early in next year. The school board intends to have the school completed, built and completed through the 2023-2024 school year, and students in place for September 2025 is the last timing that I heard. So that's the school component.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop there if there's any questions about the school piece.
Not for me with regard to the school. What about the library and the community center and so forth?
That's all part of the same
Yeah,
build
okay,
project.
so when you're talking
Yes.
about school, it's just not the school component,
Yes.
you're talking
Yeah.
the whole complex.
It's one
Okay.
build project that
Yeah.
includes the library and the school, correct?
And I
And
think,
the the community center, yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
and the daycare is involved with that too, is there not?
Correct, yes.
Okay, then. Well, that's really good news to hear. We're getting a
Uh,
final date, so that's wonderful. What about with regard to the sports fields and the baseball diamonds?
So the baseball diamonds component, which was identified as phase 1 in the project, and then the sports fields and park amenities, which were identified as phase 2, those components of the 3-phase project are being revised and redesigned to accommodate some of the changes we were having to address with respect to archaeological constraints on the property. And so those are at a pretty high level, those changes. The other component that is being incorporated into those plans is that the school has asked for a bit more land than was initially envisioned. So we're needing to adjust the layout of the site to accommodate that request, and that work is being done now. So I don't have any timelines at this point for when that work will be begun. I do know that a number of the elements that are required for the school to move forward were components of the phase 1 and phase 2. Some of the utilities, the roads, some of those pieces needed to be in place or have to be in place for the school to move forward. So those pieces will need to be implemented as part of achieving the school's timelines, and the city's committed to working to get that done.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate that.
If I could quickly piggyback off that as well. I know Councillor Vanderstelt and I were frequently meeting with Raylan, CEO of the library, Brantford Public Library, and from a boots on the ground perspective, they are meeting regularly, and there is a lot of negotiations and a lot of finite little details that I never would have even thought of that they're working on. And a lot of it has to do with, the school and the library being in such close proximity and what that means for the students who attend the school and adults who want to use the library. So there's a lot more to it than I ever thought there would be. So we are actively working towards it. It's moving forward, and I look forward to one day attending the ribbon cutting ceremony, and it would be fabulous, I know, for my own family. So thanks. Great question, Barb.
Okay, while we're still on that, can we just, is there going to be more public consultation as this progresses as to what's going on? Yes.
Should I just answer that, Rick? Yes.
Well, I was just going to say, as part of any sort of parks design project, there's always public consultation. And so I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but you can anticipate some more public information, certainly some communications out about the intention in terms of participation in what the design may or may not look like, what might be incorporated into it. I'm not sure how much of that is yet to be done and how much of that was completed at a very high level for the initial phasing. But I'm sure because it's changing, there will be some opportunities going forward for public information and participation.
Okay, that's good to hear then. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Barb.
Now, can I talk about another little matter if there's no one else with their hand up?
Yeah, you can go ahead. We have time. There is a question in the chat that I wanted to get to, and we do have another raised hand from Mark.
Why don't you go ahead with those two, and then I can come back. That's fine.
Okay, sure. Okay.
That's okay.
All right. So we'll go to the question in the chat. I'm not sure if there is staff on the panel tonight that can answer the question, but just in case maybe the counselors may have an update on this. Is there any update on the potential changes to the entry points to the new development that's going in off of Nightingale Drive?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see you ask that question. It's somewhere.
It said
in,
anonymous.
Anonymous attendee.
It says anonymous. It's in
yes.
the chat.
Well, Mrs. Attendee or Mr. Attendee. No, in short, there is no change. But what Councillor Ascoli and I were successful in doing was changing some of the city's plans going forward on some pedestrian walkability options in that area. If you recall, there was a section of sidewalk that wasn't quite complete after the previous owner had gone through its iteration of site plan. The continuation of the sidewalk from just around the bend there towards Scheller, where it would have some connectivity with the 3-meter walkway there. We put a pause on that in order to be able to continue to work with the developer who currently owns that property and find a way to use that space strategically in order to do what we plan to do. So in short, there was no change, no development, but we're getting closer to a solution. I can give you that.
Thanks, Councillor. And I think you can go ahead, Mark.
Hi, I trust I might get the prize tonight for most questions. But we don't have these meetings very often, so you know, it's good to get a chance to get some updates in the community, especially now that we're in the spring season. So I've got 2 questions in regards to a couple key Ward 1 issues here. So the first is a status update with the Oak Park extension, which I understand last year was on hold for a period of 2 years. And as a member of the Oak Park opposition group, we are also looking for that same public consultation that you just spoke of relative to other Scheller Lane developments when it does get to a time where there's further decision making for that project. So Jan, I know you made a video indicating that you know, that is something that during your tenure on council, you had no interest in supporting that any further after the opposition. And I guess I would ask on behalf of not only myself and my family, but the members of this ward who are in opposition, what is the current status of that project as far as the city is concerned?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for that. Yeah, I did make it quite clear. I would never support that route. I don't support a brand new road through the cemetery. I think the timing was wrong. I think the cemetery was poorly placed in 1992. It wasn't just the opposition, although obviously the clear voice of everybody said this is a bad idea, this is bad planning. You know, like my stepmom is there, my friends are there. It was just I'm going to call it wrong-headed. It was wrongly planned, and I never agreed with it. So yes, in my tenure, no, it will not happen. I won't support it. And typically, what happens on council is the councillors in other wards tend to support the ward's councillors because they understand the needs and the concerns of their constituents in their ward. More importantly, in lieu of having that route, what I have initiated with support from Larry Brock's office, from Mr. Willem Bauma's office, the Chamber of Commerce, a number of people in the county, including county councillors, some county staff. I've initiated the regional transportation consultation plan. It's coming up in the next while, and what we're looking at is the opportunities to connect the Brantford's transportation master plan to the transportation master plan that is yet to be completed in the county of Brant. So if you'll bear with me for a moment, if you go around the perimeter of the city of Brantford, what you will see is 3 lanes directly into farmland, 2 lanes directly into farmland, 4 lanes ending in farmland. It begs a larger question, Mark, where we're going to have to ask ourselves, how do we mesh those 2 transportation master plans to accommodate not just today's needs, but the future needs as well for the region? And now is the time to have that discussion and to look at that from a consultant standpoint in a 40,000-foot view, so that we're addressing the future needs as well, especially that transportation corridor. And it's really is an economic driver, the Oak Park corridor. I don't think we've answered all of the questions that are coming up for the next 20-25 years. It's an employment corridor as well. So that is all in the works. But as far specifically to your question, as far as Oak Park is concerned, not only do I completely disagree with the route, but I don't believe you're going to find a vote on council that supports it either.
Okay. Rose, are you on the same page?
Absolutely on the same page.
Okay, and to your comment earlier, Jan, I think the location of the cemetery is perfect because, you know, truly the intent was the serenity of where it's located, right? And the wildlife, et cetera. So I know it's not perfect for possibly future roads, growth, et cetera, but that is the future cemetery in Brantford, right? I mean, you know, when it's our time, hopefully a long time down the road, where else are you going to go for interment in Brantford for, you know, a non-Catholic burial ground, right? So it's key to the city in that respect as well, and all the other green space. So, you know, I'm pleased to hear that that kind of position because it would have been a tough battle with a large group of people if that would have been pushed further. So is that project canceled now? Would you consider it canceled, or what will be the next key step to end that thought process or the potential of that project?
The key step is the political will, and you simply won't find it. You won't find it on this council, and you won't find it on the next one.
Is it on agenda, Jan, where it has to be voted on at a certain date, or are you prepared to raise a motion during your remaining time in office to end this project, which is what I would ask you tonight?
The
option
and the opportunity to review the traffic needs going into the future, Mark, is something that must be explored. And we must practice due diligence on that. And that decision that council will make is not my decision to make at this point. We make that en masse. We make that together as a council when we have reviewed all the options. So in terms of stapling me down to what a future council will do with regard to regional transportation, I cannot. And the legalities of keeping the option open for the first portion of Oak Park has to be separated from the residential portion. And that there are some tricky kind of legal hoops that we got to jump through in order to do that. But specifically to the residential portion, including the section that runs through the cemetery, that simply won't happen. So you've got me on, I think you've got me on Twitter saying that, or on TikTok. You've got the recording tonight. That's sufficient for me. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Another item relative to the affordable housing project here at 177 Colburn Street. I understand that property is on hold due to ground contamination issues. Can you comment further on that? Because there's a lot of discussion about that here within the ward, and one can only assume that is also relative to the property that continues to sit idle across the road, which is the old Stelco Fastener plant, which you know, for 30 years was using a significant amount of chemicals there. So is that in fact the issue there, Jan, where that project is on hold due to contamination issues? Because I know the city was.
Sure. No, I'll jump in there. No problem. Yep. We are going. Without giving you too much background history on how the contamination purportedly from across the street was affecting the one at the curve. There's an awful lot of background technical studies and data that I would bore you to death with tonight if I told you.
I know what they are.
Quite honestly,
where I work in the auto industry.
Where we're sitting now is a risk management model. So not only are the contaminants just slightly above ministry standards, quite a ways down, obviously under the soils that have already been moved. They're only slightly elevated above recommendations. So what we have resigned ourselves to do was to ensure that we could use a risk management model. So essentially what you do is you just, the plot of land upon which you're going to build, you basically throw a great big kind of a rubber sheet on it. It's like a dam that stops any future contamination from leachating up the soil substrates into the surface. So that's a very common practice that is proposed for a number of remediated brown sites in the city. And it's used not only in Brantford, but many other places as well. And as you know, the first floor will be, I think it's a slab on grade, and the first floor is commercial, and all of the module units sit on top of that commercial section. So it is to be completely transparent, it is 100% safe. The methodology is tried and proven in many other municipalities, as it will be here. And it's just another one of our growing pains where we find contamination in the soil, seemingly indiscriminate places throughout the city, but we have a way of mitigating it, and we have a way of protecting those by ministry standards and by provincial mandate. Any build that is proposed for situations like that, Mark.
So is there not a requirement to do a phase 2 environmental on properties like that one and across the road before the city would go ahead and approve developments for those properties, knowing the manufacturing history? The phase 2 environmental requires you to do the required digging of the ground soil contamination, knowing it is there. By the
Sorry, you're talking about, is there a condition on the property across the road to go through phase 2 before giving permission to?
Well, I'm assuming these are related, right? Is the affordable housing property not directly impacted by the former Stelco plant across the road, the ground contamination?
No, they are two separate units, two separate properties, and the technical standards that are applied to the assessment of those properties are separate.
But once you found out the property is contaminated, is a phase 2 environmental not required by this of the city before you're allowed to have anybody develop?
Which property are you talking about, Mark?
Your affordable housing project at 177 Colburn Street.
So in a word, as I stated in the beginning of my answer, there are just only slightly elevated levels of contamination to the soils on that property. And that property can go ahead using a risk management model, like I described, without further encumbrance going forward by any surrounding property, including the railway track or the one across the street.
Who's incurring the cost for that risk management?
Sorry?
Yeah. Who's incurring the cost for the risk management plan?
Sorry, we're getting into a whole lot of technical stuff here.
No, we're not.
I'll tell you what, Mark, if it works for you, if you could send me an email, I'll give you an answer to all of the specific questions that you have in terms of the specifics.
Well, it's a ward question, Jane, so it's just not mine. I'm interested as a member of the ward. I'm sure others are as well. So if you have the question, I would like to have the question tonight. Who is bearing the cost for the additional risk management of remediating the property?
Mark, if I could just step in.
No, I'm asking Jan, please.
Yeah, Mark, I can answer that question clearly.
Okay.
I can't tell you because what we have is an angel investor. And I will not divulge the source of the funding because I've not been asked to yet. So I can't answer your question. Thank you.
An angel investor.
That plus these instances are not uncommon in a city like Brantford that has a number of areas that used to be occupied by industry. And in fact, when I was briefed on what was happening at this property, and I was told by the planners that this is very commonplace when developing in Brantford and is planned for in advance during the budget stage. So there isn't any extra costs incurred that would affect the ratepayer. But we do have a few other questions, so we'll get to those now.
Also a question in the chat, Maria.
Yep, I saw that. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that one next. So Tato?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, our home is right by the corner of Diane and Blackburn. Our issue there is the speeding at that corner. People don't seem to respect the signage. And not only that, we now have people parking, unsafe parking alongside the road to a point where they park close to the stop sign. When I come in, like coming home, to like if I want to reverse into my driveway, the way these people park, I literally have to block the oncoming traffic to be able to come in, because there's no longer room, because somebody has parked where it's supposed to be open for me to come in safely. I've called the city, like by law, so many times. Nothing seems to be done. I've been advised to call the police. I've called. I haven't seen any change in that either. So my question basically is, what is supposed to be done? Is by law there to do anything, if at all?
Sorry, can you just, you said Diane in what intersection, sorry?
Diane and Blackburn.
And I take it there's no parking signs, parking restriction signs in place currently?
No.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll review that as part of our review here and identify locations where we need to install some no parking anytime signs.
Okay.
Corner restriction signs, and that should help to address that issue.
Okay. And what about speeding? Because I have suggested to the city that maybe if they put some speed bumps to control the speeding there.
Yeah, we'll review that as part of this program for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question and comments.
If I may jump in just quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Fado, I actually live right in this neighborhood, so we're neighbors. And I've already made, I think we're seeing a theme of this very specific area on Blackburn, and it's a street that I drive 100 times a day. And I actually made a note because I know it's very hard when I'm coming down Maven to have clear visual to make a left or a right-hand turn. So I had already sort of made a note that maybe we can look at, you know, where some no parking signs out in that stretch. So I thank you so much for your suggestion and for validating what I deal with every day as well. And I made a note of it, and we're going to look at it certainly moving forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Barb. Did you still have a question?
Not so much a question. I just wanted to wear a little bit different hat right now. As part of the neighborhood association, the Shellard Neighborhood Association. I am the chair of the committee, and we have our annual general meeting coming up this Monday, and it is by Zoom, and it's always open to any of the residents within the area to participate and take part in that, which we would love to hear from people. We are looking for more volunteers to help out with our various activities. And this is from an old brochure that we used to have. We have a Facebook page. We do not have a website anymore, but we are on Instagram. And we try to keep up to date with what's happening at the city that would be of interest to our community. We partner with the city quite often for some of the activities. We have, let's see, we've just reinstated all of our rinks in the last couple of years since 2020. So Donegal Park has had the rinks going and our rink heroes, and that worked out really, really well. And we had a grant to provide skating program. Oh, it was the Neighborhood Association of Brant, the NAB committee provided us a grant so that we could have skating lessons at the park this year. So that's just one of the activities that we are working on. We've had joined with the city to promote the cleanup that we had on the 23rd. And we had various members stationed at different parks throughout the area. And we did a really good job with that. I'm pleased with it. A few more volunteers would have been nice, but we got it done. The parks have not been very dirty. So thank you very much for taking care of them. Last year, we participated in the Canada Day activities that took place in June throughout the city in promoting I'm a Kind Canadian. And putting some of those signs out, and red ribbons, I believe, that were going up. And then Show Your Spirit, the home decorating contest that went on. We participated in that and promoted it. So that was wonderful. We also participate in the participation that the city is also involved in. We got involved last year and we had activities. Again, a grant was given and we had activities. Yoga and Tai Chi was done at a couple of the parks. And we actually had lessons done on the disc golf. And we got 3 of the stationary disc golf, I don't know what you call them, where you throw them in the basket. They're at Donegal Park and they're there for anybody to come over and use at any time. You know, bring the family over. And if it's something somebody's interested in, let us know. We can probably bring back some more instructors in the summertime. We are doing it again this June. I'm not too sure the activities right now, but we'll know a little bit more at the meeting that's coming up. We have had, we also have a monarch butterfly project that's been ongoing for about 5 years. There's a couple of us that go out and collect seeds and we plant them and then we put them down in the community garden down by the Waterworks Park. And then eventually after a couple of years, they're planted back out into the wilderness. So it's a lot of the pollinators that go back out there. We've partnered with West Brant Neighbourhood Association to promote the garage sale. They wanted it back again. We had one last fall, which was, except everybody really enjoyed it. So we reinstated the one we've always had for many, many years for the first Saturday in June, so June the 4th. And basically people can go to the Facebook page and there'll be a link there where you can just register your garage sale at your home with your address, and it'll be put on a map that can be shared when the garage sale comes up. I don't know whether that's just up and running just yet, or maybe give it another week. Let's see, what else have we done? Let's see. We are also a very active member of the NAB, Neighborhood Association of Brant, where we meet with other neighborhood associations within the city and talk about our successes. And if we're having some issues and we discuss it and we get some really good advice and we can carry on through there. And that's where a lot of we get information about keeping our neighborhood safe and how we can do that. And it's been wonderful, the information that's ongoing, and NAB has been a very integral part of this and working with the police services on that. So thank you very much. We also have a member on the Southwest Community Center Task Force to let them know what our feelings are towards what we would like to see in a community center. They've taken some of our ideas that we presented to the city many years ago and are working on that as a basis. And we'll see how that progresses. We have an active youth group for high school students, and we do give community service hours. Last year we had what's called Dia's Creative Corner, and she did some craft activities on Zoom. At Christmas time, we had Christmas stories, and Mrs. Claus read Christmas stories on Zoom, which was kind of nice. We are reinstating the grade 8 Community Service Award at all of the elementary schools. And we are also looking at providing a youth scholarship fund. I'm not too sure whether it'll be for this particular year or whether for it be 22-23. So that will be for a student graduating and going on to college or university. They would be able to apply to us for a grant. I think it's $500 towards that. What else we got? Oh, and about the new park. Rick talked about that earlier. And we have been in touch with Rick with regard to that. I think he was at our last meeting. And so we have submitted quite a few names with regard to that. So that's great. Anyways, I just want to encourage people to come out and get involved. We are very active. We've been around for a long time. Kind of things lulled off during the COVID, but we're back up and running again. And we really encourage you to come out to one of our meetings on Zoom and just see how things are progressing and how you can help out in any small way. Just even to volunteer, just give us your name. And if we got something going, maybe we can just give you a call and say, yeah, I'd really like to do that. So I'm going to leave it at that and just say it's a great neighborhood. I love being here and I love working with all these people. The counselors have been fantastic. They've always supported us throughout everything that we've done. So thank you very much for listening to me.
We love you, Barb. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you for plugging all the great activities that are happening in the neighborhood, and thank you so much for your service and your enthusiasm and support of the city. Now I know why the Scheller Neighborhood Association is so robust and successful, is because you're leading them. So thank you very much, Barb.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So we'll go to the question in the chat. This is from Becky Holmes. Has there ever been any thought about slowing or stopping traffic on Donegal Park? I ask this because my kids are old enough to go to the park by themselves, but with so many cars parked, they have to peek out between cars flying around on the bends of the road. There really isn't a place for them to cross safely.
Yeah, so
Dave, yeah. Okay.
We will review this as part of our plan, but this is a great example of the kind of info that we're kind of looking for. And if I can just quickly, I've been playing away and behind the scenes here, so hopefully this will work. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example where we would look at it. We have a park. So we'd look at reducing the speed limit up to the park area, look at parking restrictions or using knockdown sticks or using bump outs to sort of create a buffer in a more protected area, narrow the roadway width down. So of course, that'll reduce the comfort level of the motorist. So they'll slow down a little more through there. Look at maybe putting an always stop at that location and putting in crosswalks and all the pavement markings that go along with it. Do a bump out at the intersection to and reduce the corner radius. So, if anybody's turning right, they're going to go slower, especially if there's kids crossing there to get to the park. You obviously want to make it as safe as possible. So these are the kinds of things that we'll come up with as we develop that plan. So I just wanted to show an example. It's just playing around. So.
Thanks, Dave. There's our transportation staff at work in real time.
You can't hold me to that one though.
Awesome. Awesome, Dave. That was impressive. Okay, I don't see any other raised hands, and we're almost at time. So I just want to thank all the participants, especially the panel, for your time in preparing for this meeting. I think it was a really productive discussion. So thank you to everybody involved and all of the attendees who participated. And I'll pass it off to the counselors to close the meeting.
Thanks so much. I mean, it is, it's 8 o'clock on a, is this Thursday?
I think it's Thursday.
I think it's Thursday. And, I know that you guys go above and beyond on a regular basis. Thank you to Brantford Police. Thank you to all of our staff who make these things possible. This is the first of many in the next little while. And I'm very glad that, well into the evening, we can call on your services. So much appreciated. Thank you very much.
And I'll ditto most of that. I'm a woman of few words. So I just want to thank everybody for attending tonight. And of course, all of the staff who just never fail to amaze me. So knowledgeable, and this is like a well-oiled machine, especially because this is my first neighborhood ward meeting. So thank you for being here during this process with me. And there are many more meetings coming. I know Jan touched on that, but I noticed some of the areas that some of our participants are from outside of the Scheller Neighborhood Association area. So don't fret. We are going to have a meeting in your area coming forward. We're working with staff on setting up some dates and times for that. So there will be many more where this came from. And thank you so much and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks. Chief Saunders, did you want to say something else?
If I can, very, very quickly, I just
Absolutely.
wanted to thank everybody on behalf of the Brantford Police Service. And when we have these types of meetings, often it comes out, people are hesitant to contact us if they have concerns. So please, we're your police service. If you have concerns, never hesitate to contact us. COVID has had to change the way that we deal with the community a little bit, and we're starting to kind of come out of that. One of the things that I'm hoping to change here is that we're going to be bringing back our Citizens Police Academy, hopefully this fall, an opportunity for us to showcase the fantastic people that we have here within our service and allow the community to see the services that we have available to offer to you. So hopefully we'll be able to do that now that things are changing again. That's all the time I'll take. Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to be a part of this tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.